You enter the office for the first time at 4:23. This time will later be repeated many times in documents, reports, and testimonies, but not as an event as a background. Like glue used to hold something together so it doesn't fall apart. Stalin's office smells of smoke and silence. This is not a metaphor. The smoke is real, from a pipe. The silence is even more real. You can hear it settling on the curtains. It is sticky, like raw dust. The table in front of you is made of ebony, unpainted, real. The table is larger than some of the rooms you've lived in before. It is massive, motionless, without a single scratch. And there is nothing superfluous on it. Folders, ashtray, clock. Your eyes stop at the inkwell, glass, square, with half-dried ink that looks like blood that has long stopped flowing. Stalin is silent. His shadow, no. It lies across the entire table, crawls towards you, crosses the floor, gets stuck on your shoes. It's not his voice ordering you to sit down. It's the voice of another, his advisor. The voice is colorless, like bread without salt. You sit down, not immediately, but quickly enough not to stand out. He doesn't look at you. You are a shadow. Paper, typewriter, hand-holding pen. He says, a secretary must remember 3 things. What he sees, he didn't see. What he hears, he didn't hear. What he writes, he doesn't understand. You nod, but not inside. Inside you still feel nothing. No fear, no pride. Only a tremor in your knuckles, because it's too quiet. The first folder unmarked, gray, thin. There's a short order there. Preparation for the meeting. Business trip. Names. Dates. You have to type. Handwriting is no good. The typewriter is on the next table. Smaller. More modest. You feel each key hitting your tongue. You type without reading. But you read, and you realize that among the names are familiar ones. One taught at your university. Another wrote poetry. Once upon a time. A long time ago. Stalin doesn't say a word. Only once does he raise his eyes and stop his gaze on your quivering pen. Then he looks down again. Then the ash from his pipe falls into the ashtray. This sound is like a period. But the sentence is not over yet. They don't ask you if you agree, if you're ready, if you can keep quiet. They put you before the fact. Tomorrow is a reception at night, then a meeting, then a list. And every time you have to be here, without a shadow, without a name, without a thought. That evening, when you return to your room, you take off your tie slowly, like a bandage from a wound that is not yet painful. You don't look in the mirror, because there's already a different person in the mirror, not yet guilty, but no longer free. In your dream, you dream of a table, the same one, but it is empty. No documents, no pen, only traces, pressed in as if someone had pounded with a fist. And next to it, your typewriter. It types by itself, without you, and every word is your name, over and over and over. You wake up at 4:23, without a bell, without an alarm clock, simply because your body already knows. This is the time when silence begins. Today he signs slowly, too slowly. You stand to the side, as always. hands behind his back, eyes on a spot on the wall where the paint has cracked a little. But you see. You always see. The pencil in his fingers is not just a tool. It's a sting. It's a key. It's the last line between someone's breath and their last morning, and he stops every time on the last name, as if he's reading not the paper, but the person. His fingers don't tremble, but yours do. You notice for the first time, the signature is not always the same. Some have a sharper slope, some have an almost light, like a dance. But today, he draws the letters like scars, slowly, silently, until the last stroke. And at the moment when the ink touches the sheet, something inside you also puts an end to it. Not on the paper, in you. You are asked to make copies. They don't order, they ask. The voice is neutral, but you know, a refusal is also a signature, simply yours. The light in the printing room is yellow, almost soft, but your hands are cold, and the paper crunches like bone. You type like a trained person, without thinking. But between paragraphs, your eyes slide to the dates, to the wording, to consider the issue of the expediency of continuing to hold office in order to ensure the security of the state. Temporary detention. You know what it means. Everyone knows, even those who pretend not to understand. On the 4th page is a name that once sang songs in your father's kitchen. That man was a family friend, a real one. He called you a little Siberian, even though you had never been north of Ryazan. You stop, only for a moment. Your gaze lingers on the line. Then, on. The keys click, like rain on gravestones. That night you wash your hands for a long time, longer than necessary. The soap no longer lathers, but you don't stop. Your fingers are already red, but you still rub. Because the ink is getting into your skin. Not because it's strong, but because your skin is too soft. In the mirror is a face, yours, but someone else's eyes. They don't blink, they are cautious. Remember how they taught you calligraphy in school? To draw each letter like a sign. The teacher said, handwriting is a soul on paper. And now you see, Stalin's handwriting is not a soul, it's a sentence. Each letter is a blade, and you are the one who hands him the pen. That night, you dream of signing yourself. The papers are endless, sheet after sheet. You don't read, you don't understand, but the hand draws the lines itself, and in each line your last name. But not as an author, as a victim. When you wake up, you do not immediately understand where you are. Where is night? Where is day? Where are you, the one who signs, and where the one who is signed? But you remember what the inkwell smells like, and this smell now lives in your dreams. The folder lies on the edge of the table as if by chance. But nothing happens by chance in this office. It has no date. It has no stamp. It doesn't even have a stamp. Gray cardboard, rubbed off by the fingers of power. You see the marks of a fingernail on it. Someone in front of you couldn't resist and nervously slid along the edge. And yet, no signature, no address, just an emptiness waiting to be filled. Stalin says nothing. He just puts it closer to you, a sigh away. Try to make a version. Let's see. This is not an assignment. This is a test. He doesn't oblige. He allows. And in his world, to allow means to check whether loyalty has matured in you. In the secretary's room, the light of the lamp lingers in the dust, like sound in a dream. You sit without moving for several minutes. You just look at this folder, which is supposed to be something else. A report? A summary? A denunciation? A strategy? Inside are 5 pages of printed text. Empty fields. Fragmentary phrases. It looks like a draft, but you know, no draft is innocent here. Current surveillance has been established. Connections with unreliable people have not been refuted. Ideological instability is possible. Below is an empty space, just for you. Not for a signature, for a thought. You study the text slowly, like a translator trying to understand the language between the lines. And in each sentence you hear, someone is standing on the edge, not yet fallen, not yet detained, not yet disappeared, but already named, already drawn here, to this office, to this night silence, to your fingers. And suddenly, you understand that for the first time you have the right to say, no, or not yet. But this is not freedom. This is responsibility, and it is more terrible here than submission. You remember the man in the photo, not from this folder, from another, but the look is similar, tired, as if he saw something that is no longer there. He used to teach history, unofficially, in the evenings. He remembered Greece, spoke of democracy with sadness, as if he were talking about an old friend he hadn't seen in a long time. He knew how to listen. He didn't interrupt. You look at the empty field again. It waits, cold, patient. You write, no overt threats detected. Behavior cautious, statements not recorded. This is not protection. This is delay. This is not no. This is not now. You know that this entry doesn't stop anything. It only moves the invisible knife a moment further. Somewhere in the corridor, a lock clicks. Maybe another one. Maybe someone is entering Stalin's office. Maybe he's already behind you. The sound makes you freeze, but your hands don't shake. And that's what scares you the most. Because habituation is the most dangerous form of consent. You add, it's advisable to continue the observation. Do not recommend active participation in responsible areas. And you feel the folder cease to be a folder. It becomes a closed cage of 4 sentences, and you've just made the first turn of the wire. In the morning, you bring the folder. You put it on the table. You don't wait for a reaction, but he reads. Slowly, each sentence, as if swallowing with suspicion. These words are fluent, softly. The facts do not confirm anything else, you answer. The facts are what we decide to call a fact, he says, and he doesn't smile. You remain silent. He leaves the folder. He doesn't sign it, but he doesn't reject it either. And that's permission. You've passed. That night, you don't go to bed for a long time. You walk around the room barefoot. Your fingers are freezing, but your heart isn't. Your heart is quiet. Like a book you've left a bookmark in and don't want to read anymore. You can see a lantern in the window, the same one. It shines yellow, and under it is a shadow. Maybe it's a guard, Or maybe it's him, or maybe it's you. And you whisper to yourself, not as a prayer, but as a warning. An empty field is the most dangerous place, because it's waiting for me. In this building, night is not a time of day, but a state. It is dense, slow, stretched between the cells of tables and the fields for signatures. It sneaks through the curtains like an unannounced check. And what is most strange is that everything sounds louder here at night, especially the typewriter. The clicking of keys is not a sound, it is a ritual. The hammer, a pause, a wave of the right hand, a carriage return. Everything is repeated, without changes, without errors. Because an error here is not just a typo, it is a signature under its own disappearance. Today you were given a list, not to read, to type. But you read. Of course you read. You always read. Even when your eyes are unaccustomed to seeing the content and can only recognize patterns. Last name, date, position, recommendation, and then formulations that have long since become euphemisms for death, subject to political loyalty check. Call for additional interview. Hold until circumstances are clarified. The typewriter accepts this without resistance. It does not ask who you are typing. It does not have a shadow in its heart. But you do. The third name is a woman. 42 years old, geologist. She once gave you a lecture on the composition of soils in the Urals. Her voice was hoarse, like dry leaves, but kind. She wore long coats and said, "Truth is not a fact, but a direction." You did not yet understand how close she was to the verdict. Now her name is 6 letters flying through the typewriter ribbon like the last letter that will never be read. You do not erase. You do not edit. You simply reduce the distance between the person and the paper, and from the paper to the archive, and from the archive to the pit. The typewriter jams. One symbol flies out of direction. You open the lid, carefully lift the hammer, breaking the rhythm. And suddenly you hear, someone has stopped behind the door, not walking, not breathing, just there. You freeze. Your hand is still in the air, as if swearing on the keyboard, and you feel, if the door opened now, you would not explain anything, because you are doing nothing. But you are not silent. A minute later, the footsteps recede, but the sound remains. Inside you, the folders pile up. You already have 3. All of them are red, like the eyes of a person who has stopped sleeping. In each, a dozen names. They do not yet know that they have already been written. They are sleeping now, with the light, with a child next to them, with a book under their pillow. But your typewriter has already printed the first letters of their disappearance. You catch yourself thinking, not all keystrokes are the same. When you type strangers, the pressure is sharp, clear. But when you recognize a surname, your hand weakens, the letters become crooked, and the machine whispers, "It wasn't you who made a mistake. It was your conscience." But you type anyway, slower, but to the point. During the day, an assistant from the NKVD comes to you. He's young. His eyes are cloudy. In his hands is a new list. He throws it like a handful of seeds into the ground. "This is for the morning. No edits. Got it?" You don't answer, because you don't have to understand anything anymore. You just have to keep the rhythm. At night, when everyone is sleeping, you stay by the typewriter. You don't type, you just look at it. And for the first time you notice, your fingerprints remain on the keys. Fat stains, like the shadows of your fingers. You imagine how someone will find it one day. In a museum, he will say, "That's what they used to type under Stalin." And he won't think that every word there is someone's name, and that the silence between the lines is louder than all the accusations. While you're falling asleep, the sound is still ticking in your head. Tuck, tuck, tuck. As if your heart is now beating on a tape. And it's no longer the sound of a typewriter. It's you. At night, the corridors live a different life. During the day, they are just transportation, from office to office, from the office to the kitchen. And at night, they are the vessels of the building, dark, pulsating. And you are a red body floating in them silently, avoiding walls, glances, your own breath. You are leaving late again. The lists will not wait until morning. They must be taken upstairs. You have a key. It is cold in your pocket. But even colder is the handle that Stalin's hand will touch. The lights go out earlier in this wing. No one explains why. No one asks. When the lights go out, it is not a signal for rest. It is a signal for silence. Because it is in the darkness that everything begins. Today is different. The corridor is not empty. When you turn the corner, you notice somewhere ahead is movement, slow, uncertain. Not the gait of a guard, not the step of a man on duty, not heavy shoes, but something of lighter. You stop. You press yourself against the wall. There is almost no light, only the dim reflection from the window. And yet the shadow moves. It doesn't move away. It doesn't disappear. The silence in the corridor always suspicious. Here, sounds matter. Footsteps, whispers, even a closed door. But the complete absence of sound is already an action. It is more deafening than a gunshot. And you stand in it, listening to your own blood rumbling in your ears. The shadow disappears. Maybe it has turned. Maybe it has dissolved. You wait another minute, then you slowly walk forward, carrying the lists like a sword, carefully but steadily. Halfway there, a door that never opens. You pass by it every day and every night. But today, there is a mark on the handle, barely noticeable, from your fingers, warmer than metal. You don't touch, just look, and a thought pops into your head that you want to back away from. What if someone sees a trace on your pen? Upstairs, near the office, the duty officer is silent. His eyes are empty, like sockets. He takes the folder and nods. Not a word, because in this place, speech is a bullet. And silence is armor. You return the same way. But now, more carefully, you search, you listen, you think. Now you create the sound yourself. The soles creak, the fabric rustles, the door at the end is barely ajar. Usually they are closed, but today, a different air. A different state. Someone has left a candle in the room where old files are stored. It is still burning, small, cautious, as if it is afraid of being discovered. You go in. No one, only silence. But not the silence you are used to. This one is alive, breathing, pulsating. On the table is a letter, handwritten. You don't read it. You don't dare, because it's not your letter, and that's why it's your fear. Next to it is a piece of bread, broken, as if someone came and left, but not all the way, and, perhaps, still nearby. You extinguish the candle with your fingers. The wax drips onto your palm. You don't cry out. You simply feel, this pain is real. Perhaps the first real one in many nights. When you walk back, you no longer listen. Now you are that sound. You are the silence that moves. A shadow that reads other people's letters and says nothing. In your room, you sit down at the table. You open a notebook, the one you hide at the bottom of a drawer, and you write one sentence. Someone still walks at night, and he's not Stalin. Then you close it. You wipe the wax off your hand, and for the first time you feel you are not the only one listening to the silence. The silence is listening to you. You never liked photographs. Even before you came here, there was always something wrong with them. Too frozen, too irreversible, as if a person had been nailed to a moment and would never move again. But now everything is different, because today you have dozens of photographs on your desk, and not a single face has eyes. They have been erased. The outlines have been left, shoulders, lips, chin, but there are no eyes. Some have lines, some have ink stains, some have just emptiness. And this emptiness stares at you more intensely than any pupils. You leaf through the file, a new list. On each sheet is a name, a brief description, a photograph, and below that is a column for notes. Today, you have to fill it out yourself. Not mechanically, not under dictation, by yourself. Fit for further work in the system. Will require additional verification for reliability. Not recommended for access to state secrets. There will be no meetings today. No councils. Not even Stalin. Just you, your hands, the papers, and your eyes, which have been erased. The photographs are not given to you by chance. They are instructions, a test, maybe even a joke. Because in a world where people disappear, their eyes should be the first to disappear. You hold one of the photographs longer than the others. A woman, dark hair, thin shoulders, eyes are erased, as if they had once tried to restore them and then given up. On the back is the inscription. Learned technical skills. Loyalty is questionable. Your hand hovers over the column of notes. You remember how she once handed you a hat in the cloakroom. She said hello. She smiled. Nothing special. But there was a timbre in her voice that you had never heard anywhere else, not in orders, not in reports, not in toasts for the party. It was the voice of a living person. And now only a chin, only a silhouette. And the question, suitable or dangerous? You develop a habit. Before you write something, you close your eyes, and you imagine not a face but a moment, the one when this person was a person. not a position, not a dossier, not a testimony. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The list is half filled. You wipe the sweat from your forehead. It seems that under each photograph is a shadow. It crawls, it looks, it wants to return to those eyes that were erased. But you don't let it. In some questionnaires, you leave a void because you can't. You don't know, or you're afraid to know. An empty field is already a sentence, even without a word. Around 3 o'clock the door opens, without a knock. You look up. It's a guard. He silently takes the first half of the list. He glances at the photos. Did you remove the eyes? Yes. He nods. He walks away. And you want to ask, who removes the eyes? Not for the record, for yourself. But you don't ask, because you already know the answer. Those who are most afraid of being seen. That night, you dream of portraits, huge, tall, like crying. On each one, only lips. They whisper, but you don't hear, because they don't have eyes, and sound can't come out without looking. You wake up screaming, but quietly, because even a scream here has to be within the limits of what is permitted. Before you lie down again, you take one photo, a woman, the same one, dark hair, no eyes, and you whisper, "Forgive me if you can, if there is anyone left." Then you hide it, not in a file, but in a pocket, not to keep it, to remind you, eyes do not fade, they simply look from within. This evening they are bringing you a box, not a folder, not an instruction, a wooden box, as if from an archive. It has no stamp, top secret. There are no names, nor the usual red lines with which the files of the undesirable are crossed out, only the word children, written in pencil, hastily, crookedly, like a boy. And something about this inscription is almost offensive, because he is alive, and everything else here is not. The guard leaves the box and leaves without saying a word. As always, here words are a fragile currency that quickly depreciates if used too often. You open the box. Inside are cards, hundreds, maybe thousands. Lines with names, dates of birth, sometimes addresses, sometimes remarks like, "Father, disappeared in 1937. Mother, case number 512. A, lives with grandmother." Some have only one word, unsupervised. These are not people. These are the remains of people. You start sorting by year, by type of loss, by status, under supervision, under review, transferred to boarding school. Your fingers grow cold, card after card like fragments of memory that have fallen to the bottom of an administrative machine, and now you are destined to systematize them. You stop at a card with the name Artem Shah, born in 1931, father arrested, mother deported. Note: possible placement in a special colony for minors. He is 10, and you don't know what a colony for 10 years looks like. You put the card away, not in the trash, not in the special, just to the side, as if you want to give this fate a few more minutes of existence, a little more space between one movement and the next. But there are dozens like Artem. Some have no names, only Boyen, found in Belorechensк. Some have a name and date of death, died on the way, frozen. Some have two cards. The first is a child. The second is already a teenager, and both are equally empty. On one of the cards is a familiar surname. You don't notice it right away, but something clicks in your head. The name is Olga V. You lived in the same yard. Once, she went to school with you, wore a light coat and sang on the lines. Her parents disappeared back in 1938. You didn't ask then, because they taught you, the less you know, the more soundly you sleep. In her card is a note. Transferred to boarding school number 17. The behavior is unstable, doesn't cry. You stare at these words for a long time, because there's something louder than a scream in this "Don't cry." Around 4 in the morning, you have 3 piles on your desk. Those who can be transferred, those who will stay, and those who haven't been found. And it's the third pile that's the smallest, but the heaviest, because absence is the most accurate sentence. When a person can't be placed, they can be crossed out. You open your pocket. There's still a photo from last night, without eyes. Now, next to it, there's a card, a child's. You don't know why you're putting these two things together. Maybe because they're both traces. And traces are the only thing that remains after a body when the body is no longer important. That night, you don't go to bed. It's impossible to fall asleep with hands like that. Not because they are tired, but because they were witnesses. And the name repeats itself in the head. Artem. 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 Like a prayer, like an order, like shame. And outside it is getting light. And this is the greatest mockery, that the sun rises even when it has no one to shine for. It sits there, black, heavy, silent. The telephone on Stalin's desk. It has no label, no rotary dial, no trace of where it connects, only a single line, a single thought. It has never rung in your presence. And yet, every time you enter the office, your eyes drift to it like to a gun left on a table. Not pointed, just present. Its silence is louder than any siren. You've learned to anticipate moments. The weight of a breath before a command, the tension in Stalin's shoulders before he signs, the subtle way his hand hovers over a name. But the phone, it does nothing, and somehow that terrifies you more. Because if it ever rings, it won't be to ask. It will be to tell, to act, to end. One night, you stay late, later than usual. A backlog of files, or maybe an excuse to linger in the shadow of something you cannot name. The office is empty. Stalin has left. The lights hum faintly. The walls, for once, are still. And the phone, still there, watching, waiting. You sit at the edge of the desk. You shouldn't, but you do. You stare at it, and your hand, your own betraying hand, reaches forward. You don't touch it. Not quite. just a breath away. You wonder what it would feel like. Cold? Warm from some hidden current of death? You pull your hand back, not out of fear, not exactly. Out of respect. Out of the kind of reverence usually reserved for the divine or the dangerous. Here, both are the same. Later, you hear footsteps. Slow, measured, the kind that belong to someone who knows he belongs. You straighten, smooth your papers. The moment with the phone vanishes like smoke, but it follows you. All the way home, you lie in bed and hear it. Not ringing, but existing. And that's enough to rob you of sleep. You remember a story someone once told you, years ago, in a kitchen with cracked tiles, about a man who answered a phone that never rang, and after that, he was never seen again. You laughed then. It felt absurd. Now, you wonder, did he laugh too? The next morning, when you return, the phone is still there, still black, still silent. But now there's a small mark on its base, a scratch. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it wasn't. You stare at it longer than you should. And for a moment, just one, you imagine it ringing. Loud. Final. You imagine your name being spoken into the receiver. Once. Quietly. Clearly. And you imagine yourself answering. Not with words, but with silence. Like always. You've seen his face 100 times, on walls, in books, on coins even. But you've only seen his hand once, really seen it. Not the gesture of power, not the raised salute, not the clenched fist carved in marble. His real hand. Up close, quiet, writing. It happened during a storm. The building creaked in the wind like a ship refusing to sink. The electricity had flickered earlier, a rare thing in this place where nothing is allowed to flicker, not even light. But now the lamps held steady. The silence was thick, and he was at his desk, head bent. You were summoned not for a task, but to observe. That's how it was worded. Remain until I am done. No explanation, no reason, just presence. So you stood. He wrote slowly. No dictation, no typewriter, no aid. Just ink and breath, and the movement of one man carving his thought into permanence. His fingers surprised you. They were thick, yes, as expected, but not stiff. They moved with a kind of cruel grace, as if they had learned long ago the exact weight of consequence. His thumb pressed the pen with purpose. His index guided. His pinky hovered just off the page, dignified, like it refused to be smudged. And every stroke was exact. There was no hesitation, not even near a name. He paused only once. You noticed. His pen lingered above a word. A name, perhaps. Or maybe something more abstract. Trust. Traitor. Necessary. You couldn't read it from your distance. But his hand did not tremble. It floated, decided, and descended. When he finished, he set the pen down. Cap on. Straight. And only then did he look at you. His eyes did not search. They confirmed. You see, that was all. You nodded. But what had you seen? The hand that moves history is not a fist. It's fingers. It's small motions. It's a pen that never questions the wrist that guides it. Back in your quarters, you try to write, just to feel your own hand again. But your fingers shake, slightly, enough. You remember being taught cursive as a boy, how the teacher would hold your hand, guide it, how the letters used to feel like vines, soft, growing, alive. Now your letters look like orders, even when you try to write your name. Later, you pass one of the junior clerks in the hallway. He looks pale. You ask quietly, "What's wrong?" He doesn't answer, just whispers, "I saw him write." You nod, and he understands. The way a man might understand a scar that mirrors his own. That night, you dream of hands, dozens of them, writing, crossing out, clawing at the edge of paper, and somewhere in the middle, your own, holding nothing, because you've stopped signing anything, but your silence signs for you. You weren't supposed to be there. You had stayed late again, a habit now drawn not by duty, but by something heavier, something without a name. You had handed off your last file and decided to walk, not directly home, but nowhere in particular. That's how you ended up near the east stairwell. The one no one used. The one that led down. The door was slightly ajar, a gap the width of your hand. Enough to hear. At first, you thought it was the wind, a low hum, rising and falling. But then you heard the shape of it. Melody. Words. Someone was singing. Not loudly. Not joyfully. Not beautifully. Soft. Hoarse. Like the voice had learned to live in a whisper. A lullaby. Foreign. Georgian, perhaps. Or Armenian. You couldn't be sure. The kind of melody you only hear if you're not supposed to. You stood frozen. Not from fear. From the ache of recognition. You hadn't heard singing in weeks. Months, maybe. Not like this. Not human. Not sanctioned. Not hollow like the hymns they hum during official ceremonies. This was private. This was forbidden. And because it was forbidden, it was alive. You didn't step closer. Didn't open the door. Didn't knock. You just listened. And, as you listened, a file formed in your head. Not one that exists, but one that will. You could hear the way it would be written. Subject displayed signs of psychological instability, refusal to conform, possible cultural, nationalist tendencies, expression through unsanctioned music. You've written that line before. Not often, but enough. You wondered if someone else had already written it for her. If her name was already in a folder, waiting for a signature. If maybe you had typed it. Eventually, the singing stopped. Not with a note, but a silence. Sharp, sudden, like a breath being held, or a mouth being covered. You stayed a moment longer, then left, like a ghost respecting another ghost's space. Later, Back in your room, you stare at the ceiling. Your hands smell faintly of ink. But your ears, they remember. That voice lives inside you now. Not because it was beautiful, but because it existed at all. The next morning, you ask someone casually what's beneath the east stairwell. They shrug. Records room, maybe storage. Not in use. Not in use. You nod. You say nothing more, because now you know something no one else will admit. There's someone down there, and she sings. And she hasn't yet been told that she is supposed to stop. You notice it the moment you return to your room. Small, rust-colored, near the hem of your shirt, just above the waistband. A stain. Not ink. Not food. You know what it is before you even touch it. Blood. It wasn't there this morning. You retrace the day in your mind, the offices, the files, the hallway outside the interrogation chamber. That's when it must have happened. You had passed by, hurriedly, trying not to listen, not to look, but someone was being escorted out, or dragged, a blur of motion, fabric, breath. Maybe their sleeve brushed yours. Maybe their body stumbled into your side. Now, they're gone, and something of them stayed. You peel off the shirt slowly. The stain isn't large, but it looks larger than it is, because it's not just blood. It's proof. Proof that you are close enough to harm, that it touches you, even when you try not to see it, even when you pretend not to feel it. You run the fabric under cold water. You don't scrub, just press it. Watch the water swirl red, then pink, then clear. But the shape remains. A faint halo. A memory that refuses to vanish. That night, your hands hover over your notes. You're supposed to be drafting a memorandum on internal morale. A meaningless document, full of praise and loyalty and sterile optimism. Instead, you stare at your hand, the one that carried the stain here, the one that touches paper more often than skin. You write nothing, because you're starting to realize that sometimes ink is not the only thing that bleeds. In the hallway, you see one of the older clerks. He nods at you vaguely, politely, but his eyes linger. Not on your face, on your collar. You washed the stain, but maybe not well enough. Or maybe it's not on your shirt anymore. Maybe it's on your posture, your silence, the way your voice tightens when you say, "Comrade." Maybe he sees it too, the invisible wound of complicity. You lie awake that night and wonder, where is that person now? The one whose blood found its way to your fabric. Still alive? Already gone? Do they remember touching you? Do they hate you for not meeting their eyes? Or worse, did they hope you might? You hold the stained shirt in your lap. You could throw it away. Replace it. Bury it under another. No one would notice. But you don't. You fold it neatly. Place it at the bottom of your drawer. Not to keep it. To remind yourself that once, just once, someone else's suffering became your burden. For exactly one breath. And you washed it away. In the early hours, you rise to light your candle. Its glow flickers against the ceiling. The light is soft, almost kind. And for a moment, it feels like forgiveness. But you know better. It's just wax. And wax melts. Truth doesn't. You didn't know he could laugh. Not truly. Not like this. You've heard him chuckle before, the dry, strategic exhale. More gesture than emotion. You've seen the practiced grin that bends the room into agreement. You've watched the corners of his mouth twitch when someone else is trying too hard to be clever. But tonight, he laughs, and it splits the air like glass. It happens just after midnight. You're delivering papers, another late memorandum, laced with hollow words about grain quotas and ideological clarity. He waves you into the room, doesn't look up. The fire crackles behind him. You're about to leave when someone says something, one of the others, a member of the inner circle, sitting in the far corner with a glass in hand and too much vodka in his throat. A joke. Not a good one. Not even funny. But something in it, a tone, a word, a memory catches Stalin the wrong way. Or the right way. And he laughs. Not long, but loud, rough, uncontrolled, real. And it terrifies you, because it's not joy. It's not warmth. It's release. Like a gun going off after too many years on safety. Everyone else laughs too, of course. Late, awkward, eyes flicking to him, then to each other. Like dogs waiting to see if the bark means play or bite. You try to join in. You form the shape of a smile. You mimic the sound. But inside, something clenches. Because there's a body count behind that laugh. And you don't know which part of the joke caused it. Later, when he calms, he glances at you. Still grinning. Still amused. You didn't find it funny? You blink. I did, Comrade Stalin. Ah, but you didn't laugh. He doesn't say it as an accusation. Not quite. But you feel it like one. Your spine stiffens. I was still processing it, you say. He smiles wider. That awful softness again. Good. That's what we do here. We process, and everyone nods. And the moment moves on. But you stay behind. Inside yourself. That night, you return to your quarters and sit in silence. You try to remember the joke, the words, the punchline, but you can't. It's gone, like a dream that evaporates by the time your feet hit the floor. All that remains is the sound, the laugh, sharp, unfitting, final. You remember your father's laugh. He used to laugh with his whole body, even in bad times. Especially then. It made things lighter, even fear. But this laughter doesn't lighten. It presses down, like a boot, like a brick. You stare at yourself in the mirror. Try to make the same smile. You fail, because you know now. There is laughter that means freedom, and there is laughter that means you've stopped needing to hide the violence, because the silence has already done the job. You find it by accident. Between files. In a drawer that shouldn't have been unlocked. Wedged behind reports on steel production and lists of counter-revolutionaries. A soft, cloth-covered notebook. Faded red. The corners curled with time. It smells like paper and sweat. And something else. Ink. Not the kind you use. The kind that breathes. You glance around. The office is quiet. Outside, the hallway pulses faintly with movement guards changing shifts. Shoes on stone. No one is watching. You open it. No signatures. No titles. Just words. Poems. Some short. Some sprawling. Some crossed out with an intensity that makes the page buckle. They are not political. They are not dangerous. Not, obviously. They are about wind. About a sister who died. About water touching skin. About a man who misses the sound of his mother humming in another room. One reads, I heard a train once, and it sounded like goodbye. You stop. You shouldn't be reading this. You know it. This is not a report. Not an assignment. Not an order. This is someone's insides. Turned out and forgotten. You flip to the last page. There's a list of dates. No context. Just numbers and months. You recognize one of them. A purge date. Another lines up with a name you saw on a transport list. You realize, slowly, that these poems aren't just poems. They are memory. Camouflaged. Survivable. You wonder whose they were. A clerk? A janitor? Someone already gone? Or worse, someone still here, pretending they never wrote them. You flip back to the page about the train. The ink there has smudged slightly. Not from water, from a fingertip. Someone touched that line too. Felt something, like you do now. You hear footsteps. Fast. Approaching. You close the notebook. Slide it back where it was. Cover it with files. Return to the posture they expect from you. The door opens. A junior officer pokes in. You're needed upstairs. You nod. Leave. Walk like nothing happened. But something did. That night, you can't sleep. The line about the train repeats in your head. You hear it in the rhythm of your breath. In the hush of the corridor outside. In the distant clang of a gate locking, somewhere far below. You rise, light a candle, sit with your hands on your knees, and whisper not a prayer, a question. Did you survive? You don't expect an answer, but the silence that follows is soft, almost warm, as if something was waiting to be remembered. The next morning, you pass the drawer again. You don't open it. You don't need to, because now those words live in you, and that is their revenge. Not rebellion, not escape, just persistence. They were written. They were read. And now they're not forgotten. It arrives in a black envelope. No markings, no stamp, no return. Just a wax seal you recognize. The emblem used only by Department 13. The one that doesn't exist on any map. The one that keeps files even Stalin doesn't read twice. Inside, a single sheet. Top corner stamped. Case. Shadow. Below. 3 lines of type. No name, no location. Just a directive. Monitor subject. Record behavior. Do not engage. And then a fourth line. In handwriting, not type. If you ask questions, you become the subject. You stare at the page. It stares back. No instructions on what to look for. No clarification on who or what the subject is. Only one thing is clear. You're part of it now. Whether you agreed or not, you place the paper in your bottom drawer, the one with the loose hinge. You don't lock it. You know better. What's locked is always searched. You walk the corridors that day with new eyes, noticing movements you'd normally ignore. The way Comrade Kravtsov looks away too quickly in meetings. The way the cleaning woman lingers too long outside Stalin's office. You begin to list possibilities in your mind. The bald man with the crooked tie. The girl with the ink-stained fingers who types faster than protocol allows. Or maybe it's none of them. Maybe the subject isn't a person. Maybe it's you. That night, you sit at your desk. No candle, just the hallway light leaking under your door. You open a notebook, a new one, blank. Title the first page, Shadow, and begin writing. Not what you know, but what you suspect. Breaths, glances, delays. A list of moments too small to matter. Until they do. You stop halfway through and stare at your own handwriting. You're documenting your own descent. Your own uncertainty. Turning suspicion into structure. Paranoia into procedure. Is that the job? Or the trap? Later, you hear laughter. Faint, muffled through walls. Not Stalin's this time. Softer, female. Wrong. There's no one left in the building who should be laughing. You rise. Open the door. Look into the hallway. Empty. Just the hum of electricity and the chill of old stone. But the laughter lingers in your mind like perfume. Or smoke. You write it down. Entry 7. Unidentified female laughter. 217 origin unknown. The pen feels heavier now. Like it knows what it's writing could one day be read in judgment. You wake the next morning and your notebook is gone. Not stolen. Removed. In its place, the same black envelope. Same wax seal. Inside, a note. You did well. That will be all. No signature, no thanks. Just silence. And suddenly, your room feels smaller. The ceiling lower. The door thinner. You realize you were never the observer. You were the experiment. And the subject you were watching was how long it would take before you became a reflection of everything you feared. It is heavier than it looks. The red ledger, cloth bound, unmarked, slightly frayed at the spine. It appears one morning on your desk, without explanation. No folder, no slip, no initials. Just the book waiting. You know better than to ask who brought it. You open it, and the weight doubles. The handwriting is familiar. Not yours. Not Stalin's. But one of the archivists, the careful one, the one who always uses black ink, always underlines names twice, always writes with a ruler at the ready. Precision like this means something. Usually, death. Each page is a name, then a date, then a number. No titles, no charges, no context, just Karpenko A. May 3, 1937. 37.14 Dobrovolskaya L. the 22nd of August, 1938. 52.06. You flip pages. The numbers change, some small, some enormous, but you start to see a pattern. The same names appear again, sometimes months apart, sometimes years. The numbers change each time. A second life, a second reckoning. You reach a page and stop, not because of a name, because of the absence of one. Just a blank line, then a date, then a number. Oh, point, oh, and in the margin, a note, erased. The word doesn't mean what it should. It's not mercy. It's not forgiveness. It's something colder. A deletion. Someone who once existed, now only exists. In the act of being removed. You read deeper. You notice initials next to certain entries. Small, quick, almost careless. VP, ML, ZK. You wonder, are these reviewers, approvers, witnesses, or accomplices? And then, a name, your name, written in the margins beside a single entry. MS. March 1941. 14.05. You stare at it for a long time. You don't remember the name it's beside. Or maybe you do, and simply refuse to. You touch the ink with your finger. It's dry, of course, but it burns. You close the book, but the weight is now in you. That night, you dream of pages, infinite, red, stacked like bricks, building a wall too high to climb, too thick to breathe behind. Each time you try to tear one out, two more grow back, and behind the wall voices, soft, choking, reciting names in reverse. Yours comes last. You wake with your fingers still curled, as if gripping something invisible. You light a candle, open a clean sheet of paper, begin to write the names you remember from the ledger. Only a few, but each one comes harder than the last. When you reach the bottom of the page, you pause, then add your own, not out of guilt, not as confession, but as record, as resistance to the act of erasing. Because if the ledger lives in silence, you will answer it in ink. He arrives without warning. No file, no clearance, no escort, just a coat too dark for the season, shoes too clean for Moscow, and eyes that belong nowhere and everywhere all at once. You are told nothing. Only this. Comrade Stalin will meet with the visitor in private. You will wait outside. You nod. You do not ask questions. You've learned. Questions are grenades disguised as curiosity. He doesn't speak when he passes you. Doesn't glance. But the scent he leaves behind is strange. Something like paper left too long in a drawer, or a memory sealed too tightly. He steps into Stalin's office. The door closes. The clock ticks. And you wait. Minutes stretch. You count the sound of your own breathing. You inventory the faint noises in the hallway. A pencil falling somewhere far. A guard coughing down the corridor. Your heart tapping against your ribs like a prisoner knocking. You stare at the closed door. Nothing leaks through. No words. Only silence. But not empty silence. Thick. Like fabric. Soaked in meaning. You begin to wonder if the meeting is real, or if the room has simply become a void. After 37 minutes, the door opens. The man steps out. Alone. No nod. No gesture. Just 2 words, spoken with a voice like winter. He knows. Then he's gone. Down the hall. Around the corner. Swallowed by the building. No one stops him. No one records his name. No one asks. You don't either. But you will never forget his face. Even if you never see it again. Especially if you don't. You enter Stalin's office as instructed. He is standing by the window, smoking, watching snow fall like ashes. He doesn't look at you, but says, "There are men who serve history, and men who write it." He turns, his face unreadable. Be sure you're not holding the pen when the writing stops. You nod, but your hands are cold. That night, you open your desk drawer. Not for files, not for orders, for the small mirror you keep hidden beneath the false bottom. You look at your reflection and realize you don't know your own face anymore. Not exactly. It's as though something has been replaced, not erased, shifted. You say aloud, softly, "He knows." And though you don't know what he knows, or even who he was, you understand the terror of being known by something that doesn't need to be named. Later, you hear footsteps in the hallway, but when you open the door, no one is there. Just a folded note slid under. 4 words. Do not write tonight. No signature. No explanation. Just presence. You don't write. And the silence is the loudest thing you've ever heard. It sits at the bottom of the drawer, wrapped in a handkerchief older than the war, folded once, then again, written on thick paper that has yellowed at the edges, like it's trying to fade without disappearing. Your handwriting smaller, softer than usual. You don't remember writing it, but you know you did. It's addressed to no one, but it begins. To whoever finds this, or to no one at all. You unfold it slowly. Each crease is a memory. Each line, a part of yourself you buried. Beneath uniforms and silence and protocol, the letter doesn't confess. It doesn't accuse. It simply remembers. You wrote about the girl in the basement who sang when she thought no one was listening. The stain on your shirt that never fully came out. The name in the red ledger beside your own. The laughter you wish you hadn't heard. You wrote about the phone that never rang. The man with no name. The dreams. The ledger. The hand. You wrote about the things that made you human, and the things that ask you not to be. You read it now as if someone else wrote it. A stranger. A version of you that hoped, briefly, for something better than survival. You don't cry. You're long past that. But something clenches behind your ribs. A slow pressure. The ache of holding your breath for 17 nights. You could burn it. You probably should. It is evidence. Not of guilt, but of memory. And memory here is dangerous. It proves you still think. Still remember. Still feel. You fold it back up. Not to hide it, but to protect it, because it's the only thing left that belongs to you. In the hallway, the light flickers once, then steadies. Footsteps echo far away. The Kremlin sleeps, but the building never forgets. It hums with names unspoken and stories unwritten. You slip the letter into your coat. You don't know why. Maybe one day someone will find it. Or maybe it will stay with you until there's nothing left of you but ash and rumor. But either way, it was written, and that's enough. You step outside. Cold air bites your face. The snow has started again. Soft, endless. You pull your coat tight. Take one step forward, then another, and with each step, a voice inside whispers, "You were here. You witnessed. You remembered. Not as a hero, not even as a man, but as a witness. And in a world built to erase, to witness is to resist."